An educational bridge across the cultural divide, teaching art to science students and science to art students. It was half a century ago that the writer and scientist C.P. Snow gave the Reed Lecture, where he coined the phrase two cultures, and described the cultural divide between artists and scientists. This rift is narrowing largely because in the many ways science has supplied artists with new tools to create, a situation paralleling that of the Renaissance, but also because scientists have come to realize that their way of apprehending reality are surprisingly similar to those of artists. This is exemplified by the use of terms such as elegance or beauty in describing a scientific theory. Of course, there's still profound differences as well as similarities between the creativity of artists and scientists, but there's much common ground where artists and scientists both could cordially meet. Nevertheless, there still remains a cultural divide. The individual who is deeply interested in both art and science is not the norm, despite the importance of both. Unfortunately, this seems to be almost as true of the young as of the old, which suggests that the healing of the rift has actually slowed. As is often the case where there is mutual suspicion and distrust, the cause is ignorance, and the solution, education. It is a fact, if unfortunate, the onus of responsibility for education has shifted from the individual to the institution of formal education. And formal education has become extremely compartmentalized, especially at the university level. Students are usually asked to declare a major during their first year, and because they can only sample a small number of introductory courses before making this decision, they limit their selection to courses they happen to have liked in secondary school, often because of a particular teacher they happen to have had. When arriving at university, they're immediately given a list of required courses for any particular degree. Now, it's true that this list also includes approved electives, but these are often in the same discipline. The result is that students are effectively sorted into either arts or science students, and their course offerings reflect this dichotomy. Furthermore, subsequently, even their social lives will tend to be with fellow students with similar interests that they know from classes. I gave a 5-point Likert scale questionnaire to 153 students in my introductory psychology course at a small liberal arts college. The questions were designed to determine their opinion regarding arts and science, art and scientists. 3 of the questions were whether they considered artists or scientists more creative, whether they were more interested in science or in art, and which they considered more important, science or art. As you can see from this chart, the results suggest that they associate art much more with creativity and find it more interesting, but believe science is more valuable. It's just less interesting and a less creative activity. Now, most of my students in the sample were science majors, so it's distressing that even they seem to see science as a relatively uncreative activity. What I'd like to offer here is an example of one corrective bridge, a course I teach on the psychology of art. It's just one example of a course, and there's many others that are possible, that involves combining both art and science, and one that is acceptable as an elective for both art and science majors. It has proven to be quite popular with both psychology majors and art students. This is the course description for the 2 parts of the Psychology of Art course that I teach. This is taken from the Nipissing University calendar. If you read through it, you'll get a general idea what exactly I attempt to do in this course. And now I'd like to present some of the pedagogical methods I used, which I feel are quite effective, and some of which would be applicable to other types of courses. There are reflective journals, discussion forums, what I call aesthetic experiences, and science readings. Okay, this is the description of the reflective journal from my syllabus. This is where I evaluate how much thought you are giving to the course content. I'd like you to write from the heart, and please be informal. You do not have to worry about APA format or any of the usual concerns associated with required assignment in psychology. Instead, this should be a personal journal, written in the first person, of your reflections on the material presented in this course. I'm interested in your thoughtful and emotional reactions to the course content, including the readings and discussions on the forums. This reflective journal, which is very unusual for science students, has some definite advantages. Okay? Science students are not normally allowed to express themselves informally without concern about scholarly rigor, about the APA format. This allows them to make a more personal engagement with the course content, rather than simply being concerned with mastering facts and passing an exam. Another tool I use is what I call discussion forums. These are done online. All the students have access and they can interact as in a list server. See, here is a description for what I expect in a discussion forum. Each module will suggest a different discussion question and create an individual discussion forum for that module. This is the place to express opinions, suggest links to relevant material, and engage in discussion about the topic. Passionate disputes are to be expected and even encouraged, but always try to maintain some level of decorum and courtesy. I'm only concerned here with you being engaged with the discussion, not with your particular viewpoint on anything. Like the reflective journal, this discussion forum methodology allows students to express themselves informally, and the students are particularly accustomed to using internet social media, such as Facebook and so on, and text messaging. And so this way, they feel more comfortable openly airing their opinions than they would in a classroom setting, where very often students are shy to express themselves. Now, the idea behind this, of course, is this interaction encourages personal engagement with the course content, which is what, of course, I'm aiming for in this. Finally, another really major component of the course is what I call aesthetic experiences. Rather than spending a lot of time looking at commentary about subject content, I think it's important to actually expose the student to the content. And the content of this course, of course, is art. Okay? I call these aesthetic experiences. Here's where the internet comes into play. Art in all forms, music, performance, visual art, is now readily accessible to anyone with internet access. So students, of course, for this course require that. But what I do instead of a textbook is I simply point them to the material I want them to examine, whether it be music or visual art or whatever. And it has made the possibility of teaching art so much more effective. Now, while art may be the content, the subject matter, the methodology is a science. And therefore, it's very important that there be a strong scientific component to the course. Okay, so the course does not just include artworks, but it also includes science. And science in the direct form, that is, primary sources. Once again, the internet proves to be a tremendous resource. It's now possible for students to access scientific papers. And as I said, with art, it's important that they actually look at the art. In the case of science, it's important they actually look at the scientific papers. And these are readily accessible to university students now. The students that are art majors and not familiar with science may occasionally have difficulty with reading the scientific papers, but I believe it's important that they go to direct sources. And those direct sources, are, as I say, are readily available. The following pretty well sums up my view, my philosophy of education, and why I think this course is so important and courses like it are so important. Civilization is made possible by understanding, and there are two roads to understanding, art and science. These are the things that matter. Mankind creates what nature hasn't and is moved by it. A liberal education involves traveling both these roads. There are many ways that educators can work to heal the rift between science and art. I offer this course on psychology of art as just one example of how a small change in curriculum can broaden the perspectives and interests of students that have been taught to focus on gaining an in-depth understanding of only one part of one side of the cultural landscape. Giving anything even resembling the ideal of a liberal education in current institutions of higher education is a difficult project, but more courses across academic disciplines are a small step in the right direction.